Good evening, I'm Joel Flynn in Hong Kong. Welcome to the late edition of ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. WWPKG reveals that personal information of as many as 200,000 customers may have been compromised by hackers. A motion to thank the chief executive's policy is expected to pass for the first time in 9 years. And Donald Trump arrives in Beijing with plans to step up pressure on Xi Jinping over trade and North Korea. Good evening. We begin with an update on WWPKG's data hack. The head of the travel agency estimates that personal data of as many as 200,000 customers may have been compromised. CEO Yuan Chengning has apologized for the blunder. He said hackers demanded a Bitcoin payment of more than $1 million on Monday, but management has decided against paying it. Yuan added the way the company's system was hacked was unusual, and it wasn't the WannaCry ransomware. Meanwhile, WWPKG has commissioned 2 cybersecurity firms to unlock the travel agency's database. The agency also suggested affected customers to cancel their credit cards first.
We are quite sure that the information containing all the regarding the credit card information is only around 1/10 of the total data. We are not going to encourage this kind of hacking action. So we have once we have called police, we have decided not to pay the ransom, no matter what.
A traditional motion of thanks for the chief executive's policy address is expected to be passed by lawmakers for the first time in 9 years. That's as the pro-Beijing camp holds a majority of seats after 6 pro-democracy lawmakers were disqualified for their improper oath-taking. Lawmakers kicked off the 3-day debate on Carrie Lam's maiden policy address earlier this morning. Still, Civic Party's Alvin Yeung criticised her for failing to address social divisions despite efforts made to solve the city's livelihood issues. Meantime, former Chief Executive C.Y. Leung is under fire after he refused to attend a LegCo committee inquiry investigating his $50 million deal with Australian property firm UGL. Committee Chair Paul Tsay slammed him for being uncooperative and said he failed to provide requested documents. The pro panel was set up last year after reports revealed Leung failed to declare the payment to his cabinet. Pan-Democrat Lam Chuk Ting said the committee should consider invoking special LegCo powers to summon Leung if he continues to dismiss the panel.
If he has a reason to defend himself, he should fully make use of the opportunities to explain the matter thoroughly. However, it seems that he dare not to come and explain the matter to the general public.
The Eastern Court today ruled there's reason to believe retired cop Franklin Chu assaulted a pedestrian with his baton during the Occupy protests. That's after the victim's doctor told the court Osman Cheng suffered injuries on the left of his neck, his right elbow and his right leg. But after watching news video of the incident, the doctor said he isn't sure whether the wound on Cheng's neck was where Chu hit him. Defending himself, Chu said the situation on the night was unstable, adding some protesters had covered their faces and were carrying shields as police had to use force to keep them at bay. Donald Trump has arrived in China as part of his tour of the region in what will likely be the most closely watched leg of it. The US president touched down in Beijing this afternoon before being taken straight to the Forbidden City by Xi Jinping. The pair were accompanied by both of their wives on what was a rare tour of the landmark by the Chinese president. While there were smiles for the cameras, though, Trump has vowed to step up pressure on China during his 2-night stop in the country, in particular targeting the regulation of trade and reining in North Korea. But as Samantha Ballas reports, his harsh rhetoric hasn't deterred a growing base of supporters there.
I would put a lot of pressure on China. They are extracting billions of dollars out of our country, billions.
He may have had some tough words for China, but half a world away in a country of 1.4 billion people, Donald Trump seems to have no shortage of die-hard fans. And as Beijing rolls out the red carpet for the US leader on Wednesday, the cheers are drowning out the boos on Chinese social media. Reuters' Pei Li explains why.
A lot of Chinese people think Trump is funny, he's rich, he's very successful, he's straight talking, and he's very outspoken on various issues, including gender and race, where his hands are not tied by political correctness.
As well as being seen as a tough president and successful businessman, Trump seems to score extra points in China for his parenting. His daughter Ivanka, who has Mandarin-speaking children, has been referred to as a goddess on Chinese social media, one user giving a nod to her father in a post saying, "Sad, Ivanka's not coming to China."
Well, ahead of his arrival in Beijing, Trump issued a stern warning to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He said North Korea faces disaster unless it gives up its nuclear ambitions. Addressing the South Korean parliament earlier today, Trump offered a bright path for the North if it abandons its missile program. The president also warned Kim the weapons are putting his regime in grave danger rather than making it safer. While stressing the US is ready to use military force if necessary, Trump said all countries have to stand together to defuse the crisis.
All responsible nations must join forces to isolate the brutal regime of North Korea, to deny it, and any form of it, you cannot support, you cannot supply, you cannot accept. We call on every nation, including China and Russia, to fully implement UN Security Council resolutions, downgrade diplomatic relations with the regime, and sever all ties of trade and technology.
Well, for more on Trump's visit to South Korea, here's our correspondent in Seoul, Joseph Kim.
During Trump's visit to South Korea, the worries many had from North Korea's nuclear weapons program to bilateral trade were mitigated, even if it was for a brief moment. President Moon and the First Lady rolled out the red carpet for the U.S. president, giving them a grand entrance at the Blue House, South Korea's presidential office, with an official welcoming ceremony accompanied by guards and a band, while serving them traditional refreshments and snacks personally made by South Korea's First Lady, Kim Jong-suk. Alongside this welcome, there was also a shift in the once divisive rhetoric that Trump has used, saying that it makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and make a deal, a diversion from saying now's not the time for talks and all options are on the table. But while there was a change in the words that Trump used, his commitment to the alliance with South Korea was coupled by promises that Seoul, like Tokyo, buy more U.S. weapons, which Trump says would help reduce the trade deficit.
Meanwhile, there has been further developments in the investigation into the murder of Kim Jong-un's half-brother in February. A court in Malaysia where the murder happened heard that Pyongyang may have been directly involved. 3 men wanted for the killing of Kim Jong-nam were allegedly driven to the murder site in a car bought by a North Korean embassy official, according to a lawyer. 2 women, Indonesian Siti Aisyah and Doan Thi Huang, a Vietnamese, have been charged with conspiring with 4 North Korean fugitives to kill Kim Jong-nam. North Korea has vehemently denied accusations by South Korean and US officials that Kim Jong-un's regime was behind the killing. OK, coming up next, the latest from the world of business. All right, we kick things off with a look at what happened on the markets today. The Hang Seng Index closed down 1/3%. Investors really did have the bit between their teeth early on this morning as we pushed 10-year highs on the markets in Hong Kong. But after that, buying did drop off to leave us down. Meanwhile, the news of the day on the markets was the initial public offering of shares in Tencent's e-book company China Literature, and boy, did it do well. The opening price of $55 a share doubled in early trade after astonishing demand from investors. That gives the company a market value of nearly $13 billion US. After closing up 86%, the share offering is the best performing debut this year in the world for a company raising more than $500 million US, according to Thomson Reuters data. Chinese trade slowed in October in a sign Beijing's crackdown on pollution is hitting factory output. Exports rose 6.9% from last year, just short of analyst forecasts. This is compared to an 8.1% growth from September. Meantime, imports grew 17.2% year-on-year in October, beating forecasts, but still slower than growth in the previous month. The trade data also showed China's surplus with the US ahead of Donald Trump's highly anticipated visit. More doubts are growing about the viability of the Trans-Pacific Partnership as continuing disagreements threaten to hold it back. The 11 countries party to it have been arguing over how fast to proceed with the trade deal, particularly after the withdrawal of the US earlier this year. The TPP is seen by many as a regional counterweight to China's growing dominance and aims to reduce tariffs on industrial and farm products on a bloc including Japan. Some participants were hoping to sign it on the sidelines of this week's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Vietnam. Turning to the US, and though I'm sure more than a few of you don't want to hear it, there are just 46 days left until Christmas, and most of us, yes, including me, probably haven't done our shopping yet. For US consumers, those shop shelves might seem a little bit emptier this year. Roselle Chen tells us why.
Big U.S. retailers such as Macy's, JCPenney, and Kohl's are playing it safe this holiday season. A dozen sources, company officials, vendors, and consultants told Reuters they're buying merchandise in smaller batches with shorter lead times. The goal? To keep inventory costs down. They're also trying to avoid what happened during previous holiday seasons when large piles of unsold stock led to deep markdowns and eventually hit profits. Retail analyst Trey Bodge.
Well, I think it's really about not wanting to hold so much inventory in their stores. And so I think they're doing that to offset what's happening online, creating more inventory availability online. And then if a consumer is in the store and something's out of stock, certain retailers are making moves to make it easier for the consumer to receive that product by mail.
The strategy takes a page from the playbook of Zara and H&M. The so-called fast fashion retailers consistently keep low inventories of trendy clothes and try to win customers with cheap prices.
Okay, time for a break, but when we return...